Hello, Mrs. Yasmine Mohammed. At PDF Quebec, we are honored that you have accepted to participate in our webinar for the World Day Without Veil. We are very happy to have you with us. For everyone's benefit, we have prepared a few questions. Our first question is, how has your personal story led you to defend the universal rights of women, free thinkers, homosexuals, and ex-Muslims?
Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor for me to be here speaking with you today. I wanted to say that I really appreciate PDF Quebec for the work that you are doing. You are incredibly brave and courageous feminists to stand in solidarity with your sisters across the world. I think that this issue of hijab is one that confuses a lot of people, even though I don't think it's confusing at all. I think that toxic, purity culture, modesty culture, we all understand the dangers of it. But for some reason, when it is in reference to Islam, people start to get confused. So I am really grateful that you are not confused and that you understand feminism and that you understand how important it is to stand up for secularism. And so I just wanted to say that the honor is mine to be here today. And to answer your question, my whole life growing up, as a Muslim woman, I never felt that I had control over my life because I was always being told what to do, what to wear, even who to marry. All of the decisions are decided for you. So when I was able to get myself and my daughter free after a very long struggle, one of the first, after you heal yourself, of course, one of the first things that you want to do is to reach out to other people who are living the same life that you were living. And that's why I wrote my book. And that's why my activism is mostly around women from Muslim households, not just Muslim majority countries, because I was born and raised in Canada. And my story is very common with women in Germany, France, Sweden, Egypt, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan. So it's the geography is irrelevant. And the reason why I stand in solidarity with homosexuals is because there is such a hate in Islam for homosexuals. And so, and for Jewish people as well. So there was such a strong hate that I was raised with towards Jewish people and towards gay people. And so when I came out of this, bubble of indoctrination, I felt a lot of guilt and a lot of need to, I wouldn't say repent, but some way of making amends for the years of hate that I was prescribed, that I was given this hate to carry. And I wanted to make sure that I did my best to undo that hate. And so that's why with my organization, Free Hearts, Free Minds, we focus, like you said, on free thinkers and gay and lesbian community in the Muslim majority world, because those are the two groups. So free hearts, being allowed to love who you want to love, and free minds, being allowed to believe what you want to believe. Those are the two groups who are at most risk of persecution, definitely persecution, and quite possibly execution as well in many Muslim majority countries. So that's where I focus my activism and my energy.
Thank you. What were the reactions of the media, the public, and those around you upon the release of your book called Unveiled?
Well, a lot of people had different reactions. some of them I was expecting and some of them I was surprised. So from the Muslim community, of course, they don't want the dirty laundry to be aired. They want the secrets to stay hidden. They don't want ex-Muslims to come out and tell the truth about what we are taught and how we are raised. And so there is a lot of anger from that community because they don't want me to speak the truth. And I have a podcast called Forgotten Feminists, where I speak to many different women from around the world who've had similar experiences to mine, and some of them are very different, but we've lived in all of us have been, you know, oppressed by Islam one way or another. And our stories are very similar because these are the edicts from this book, the edicts from this religion are, it's a very misogynist religion. And people like to say, oh, you know, she's lying, this isn't true. But the more voices that come out and the more people that speak, the more difficult it is for them to just demonize one person and try to silence one person, because the more of us that speak up, the more difficult it is for them to silence us. So that's from the Muslim community. And then from the left, I should say the far left, in the Western world, I got a lot of very surprising accusations of being a bigot, being hateful, being just overly angry at my religion and the community that I grew up in. And a lot of accusations that came from places that were assuming the worst of me. And so that was, of course, a little bit expected, but I was quite surprised at how strongly they did not want to support me or my book because they were scared. I think they were scared of the backlash of people calling them Islamophobic or bigots or racists. And also, of course, they were physically scared of the violence and the terrorism that can be unleashed from Muslims when a book is published that they don't like, or cartoons are published that they don't like. So I did not find any support, unfortunately, which is one of the reasons why I'm so grateful for PDF. So I ended up self-publishing my book.
And how does the British Columbia, where you live, and the rest of multicultural Canada deal with the presence of religious symbols, including the veil, in public institutions, schools, and universities?
So it is incredibly depressing for me to answer this question for you, because the truth is that not just British Columbia, but so many other provinces in our country of Canada support the hijab. They celebrate the hijab. They promote the hijab. So you'll find it on advertisements, you'll find it on the cover of books, you'll find it in places where it's just so random, but they just want to put a hijab on every girl. And they think that this is diversity and inclusion, but they don't think about, what is this hijab that you are putting on this child? What is it that you are normalizing? What is this tool of misogyny? They don't even think. They just want to promote it because they think that it is a cultural thing. It's not culture. What culture are you talking about? Are you talking about the culture of Egypt, the culture of Somalia, the culture of Afghanistan, the culture of Saudi Arabia? These are all very different cultures. You know, so there's over 50 Muslim majority countries. A lot of those countries do not share the same language. They do not share the same food. They do not share anything in common except for the fact that they follow this religion. It is not a religious symbol. It is not a cultural clothing. It is religious clothing. And they would never promote conservative religious clothing from any other religion. They only promote it for Islam. And the sad thing is that there are currently women in prison today over the hijab. There are women that have been imprisoned in Saudi Arabia. There are women that are in prison right now in Iran. There are women that have been killed in Algeria, women that have been killed in Iraq, women who have been killed in Pakistan, women who have been killed in Canada over the hijab. This is not a benign cultural clothing. And for them to pretend that it is insulting. It's insulting to every feminist who fights for her right to choose what she wants to wear on her own body. And it is so insulting to all of those girls and women who have lost their lives because they just wanted to make a decision about their own bodies. So it really makes me sad the way Canada is treating the hijab. Not all of Canada. I'm grateful that we have at least one province, and that's Quebec. Seems to be the only province that has their head screwed on properly when it comes to this topic.
How is the burqa or the niqab an attack on the dignity of women? Should we ban the full veil in public institutions to take the oath of citizenship, but also in the street, shops, and means of transport?
So it is dehumanizing to women because the whole reason for the hijab is victim blaming. The whole purpose of it is to say, you must cover yourself so that a man doesn't rape you. It's your responsibility, you know, rather than be speaking to the criminals, be speaking to the men. The onus is on women to wear this hijab. Now, we understand how victim blaming is so toxic, you know, and also it's slut shaming. There is a very clear and prominent message of a woman who is covered in hijab is clean and pure and good and will go to heaven. And a woman who does not wear hijab is a filthy, dirty whore who will burn in hell. So it is also causing that dichotomy between women. And there are so many other reasons why I hate the hijab. It takes away the individuality of a woman. It forces her to become just a poster of like Muslim. That's it. She doesn't get to be an individual. She doesn't get to have a personality. She has to constantly be upholding this almost like she is a poster child for this religion. Men don't have to carry that kind of pressure. And also the honor violence and the honor killings that come from that kind of pressure too, because it's the woman's responsibility to carry all of this pressure of her family honor and the honor of the religion and the honor of like the whole, sometimes, you know, all Arabs or all Muslims. It causes, it puts all of that pressure on her. And then the vicious people around her, quite often her family members, will attack her or even kill her if she does not uphold all of these honors to their expectations. So, you know, there are so many reasons. I could talk for a very long time about how the hijab is so toxic and so dehumanizing in so many ways. Now, I wore the hijab from the age of 9 until the age of 19. And then at 19, I was forced to even wear the niqab, which is covering my face in black and gloves in black. And I was walking around like a corpse. You know, I felt like a ghost. People can see me, you know, I can see them, but they can't see me, you know? And I felt like I wasn't part of humanity. I felt like I wasn't part of the society. I felt so separated, so dehumanized. So that's the answer to that question is a very long one. And I think it's very, it should be very obvious to people when they see somebody dressed in a burqa. It should be very clear to them that no human being, you know, decides, you know what I want to do? I want to cover myself head to toe, and I want to erase myself entirely so that I don't even look like a human being interacting in society with other human beings anymore. nobody wants to diminish themselves like that. Obviously, the people that are doing that are doing so under coercion. Now, whether they are being coerced by their fathers or their husbands or their uncles or their brothers or even their God that tells them you will burn in hell if you don't do this, there is coercion. And it is a very sad thing to see. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember oh yes, do I want to ban it? As far as banning it, unfortunately, as somebody who used to live in that community, who was indoctrinated in that mindset, I can tell you that I agree with the secularism choices that countries like France or provinces like Quebec have made. I think that it's very important in the public sphere to have a objective person making decisions when it comes to the government, at least somebody who is perceived to be objective. I mean, I just told you about how homosexuality is so demonized, how homosexual people should be killed according to the Islamic edicts of Sharia. And so just imagine how a little gay boy would feel going to his teacher in hijab, or a little lesbian girl going to her teacher in hijab. They know what their religion says. They're not going to feel comfortable speaking to somebody who's wearing a symbol that tells them, I am part of the group of people who hate you. So it is very important when you are in a position of power, when you're especially from the government, that you should be objective. And now I have so many stories too of people who have gone to social workers or people who have gone to homeless shelters, and they have had Muslim people, this is in Toronto and in BC, and where they've had Muslim caseworkers tell them things like, shame on you. You are dishonoring your father. Go back to your family and apologize. So this is not the kind of support that you're looking for when you go to a homeless shelter because you're running away from your family. You don't want to find the person there telling you, shame on you, go back to your family. So, as much as I agree with it when it comes to positions of power and authority like that, especially when it's government, when you talk about shopping malls and restaurants and things like that, no, I don't think it should be banned. I think that people should be.
Sorry, but in the question we were talking about the full veil
Yes.
For these places, not
yes.
the hijab.
Then you know what? I personally believe that it is a safety concern. And I do think that it should not be allowed. And in fact, people in niqab, there are so many situations where children have been kidnapped, even suicide bombings have happened, all sorts of theft, of course, because people are wearing niqab. We don't even know if they are men or women. Even rapes happen sometimes in like public washrooms and things like that, because men wear niqab and they enter places unnoticed and they cause, they wreak criminal havoc. So, and obviously the cameras are of no help. When I saw a video of a child being kidnapped, you're watching it happen right before your eyes, and there's absolutely no discernible features. There's no way to be able to catch the person who did this. And so I think that when it comes to niqab, I really believe that's a safety issue. And I'm not one who believes in religious exceptionalism. I really don't care. First of all, the niqab is not even part of Islam. It's an extremist clothing. That's something that's very important to say. Even in countries like Morocco, in Qatar, in Egypt, in many, many Muslim majority countries, they have restrictions on the niqab or the burqa. They have restrictions on it. Even in a country like Qatar, who is one of the most Islamist countries you can imagine, people in niqab are not allowed to work in the bank. So there's all sorts of restrictions. And the reason why they have those restrictions is because they have put safety first, and they understand that this isn't a religious requirement. But when they come in Canada and they come in America and they come in Western countries and they pretend that it's a religious requirement, I must do this because my God said that I must do this. Well, two things. First of all, your God didn't say to do it. Second of all, I don't care if he did. It doesn't matter to me. This is a secular nation. It's one law for all. And, you know, you don't get to live in this religious exceptionalism in this society. If you really believe it's so important for you that you need to dress like that, then you can go to Afghanistan. They will support you over there. You won't have any trouble. So to come to a secular nation and to expect the nation to change its laws to suit you is very arrogant and very selfish.
My last question. Why are you in favor of Bill 21, establishing the secularism of the state, which was passed in Quebec in 2019?
So yeah, as I mentioned before about the importance of having somebody who is in a position of authority to be completely objective, I think that's very important. But as far as secularism in general, it is so incredibly important that those of us who are in secular nations and who believe in secularism must defend secularism with all our might. We know how religious people will use every single weapon in their disposal to expand their religion and to terrorize people to follow their religion and to scare people from criticizing their religion. And when you are up against something like that, you have to respond with strength and you say, no, this is a secular nation. This is the boundary. You cannot be soft. You cannot be wishy-washy when you are up against people who will behead teachers over a cartoon. You know, this is not the time for this kumbaya, let's all hold hands and love each other. That's not reality. That's not the world we live in, unfortunately. So if we want a secular nation where everybody feels free and feels safe, then we have to defend secularism. We have to defend our values of secularism unapologetically.
We thank you warmly for your availability and your generosity. Your involvement with women is important, even essential. Thank you again, Mrs. Yasmine Mohammed. Have a good day.
Thank you, you too. Merci beaucoup.